Hi, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the July meeting. And if it's a little hot out there, people are vacationing. Oh, and I see some fanning. A little hot out here. We may need to check the air conditioner. I'll ask Patty. Patty, can you see if there's a control for the air conditioner? We got a few hot folks here. Anyway, hey, we're just so glad everyone is here. I gotta be sure and stay in my camera view at this point. But we want to thank you. I'm Mary Jane Berry. I am the facilitator, but also the executive director for GAPS. GAPS is Georgetown Area Parkinson Support Group. And this meeting is a hybrid meeting. That means that you have in-person folks as well as folks that are on Zoom. And so we want to thank you for coming, our Zoom audience. We're also recording this. So when it's on Zoom, we give us the capacity to record. And so I will send out the link in my next email. Now, first thing, because we got some great door prizes. My gosh, we got gift certificates. We're getting even better and better door prizes. We've got a great person that's helping us with that, and they can lead. Oh, we got bundt cake. Oh my goodness. We got to tell Karen. Karen, thank you so much for all the work. She's one of our board members, and we want to say thank you for getting all of this together. Anyway, if you in the audience, if you do not have a ticket, be sure you get one because they're in the back and we can bring it right to you. So if you just raise your hand, we will bring tickets to you. So keep that in mind. All right, agenda for today's meeting. As you know, we always come at 2:30. The 2:30 to 3 is kind of that social time, that opportunity to get to visit with folks, get to visit with our sponsors because our sponsors are very, very important. And so I'm glad y'all did that. That's why I even go around at the beginning of the meeting with the Zoom camera so that we can meet them personally. Announcements, I'm going to be doing that right in just a few moments. Our speaker is going to be Dr. Eric Rhoden, and you're going to really, really, really like him with Run Lab Austin, and it's going to be on strength and gait training. And so many folks have problems with balance issues, and he'll be addressing and talking about that. And then we will give out the tickets. Just a reminder to everyone, we have t-shirts. We're just about to run out. We're going to either order some more or even maybe come up with a new logo. So we're working on a lot of things here, but we do have t-shirts if anybody would like them over there here at the in-person meeting. Sponsors, I want to be sure, and again, thank all of our sponsors. Abby is one of our sponsors this month. I don't see Erin. She is a new mama, so she's probably busy. But Abby is very, very good. And they will be at our next meeting, so you get to learn more about that. Grand Living is another sponsor. We meet at the Grand Living for our educational luncheons. And we are going to be doing something really new, and I'll be talking about it even more and more. We're going to have a Parkinson 101, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. We'll be meeting at Tiffany. Tiffany Enos is our contact. We'll be meeting at the Grand Living. Medtronic. Let's see. There he is. Good. All right. David Ott is with us with Medtronic, and we want to say thank you so much. He and Candace are very good supporters and help us out a lot. And so if anybody has DBS or a Medtronic DBS has questions, this is the man to see. Okay. We have Supernus with Will, and Will is here. He's already talking to some folks. They have Apokin, they have GoCovery. So in other words, these are just products. Again, they come to our meeting, support, and they support you. This is really nice because you get to know the sponsor, the representative for whatever medication you're on. And if you don't know who it is, if you need to find one, you let me know. I'll connect you. Okay, the next one is Amy Dukes. Amy's here also. She's over here in the corner, again, talking to folks with Nuplazid. And so by all means, again, we just are so thankful to have all this support. And then we have Arcadia, which is what Amy is with, and they are hosting the next educational luncheon. We had an educational luncheon last week, actually, and it was Supernus supported it. We had a representative or a doctor from New York that came down. We had 58 in attendance. It was a wonderful presentation. We're going to have this doctor, and I don't know if I can pronounce his name very well. Harun Puza, I'm not real sure how to pronounce it, but in any case, I know he's going to be great. He's from Oklahoma City, so they're flying him down. So this is a free meal, but at the same time, it's a wonderful lecture and you get a chance to talk one-on-one with the doctor. So if you've never been to our educational luncheons, I advertise them in our emails and on our newsletter. Be sure that you sign up for this one. It's going to be another great one sponsored by Arcadia. Okay. Caregivers, many, do you know that was interesting when we talked to the doctor from New York, Dr. Gupta? She said that well, first off, she says there's very few support groups in all of New York City. She says we really don't have any support. Then she says, and we don't have caregivers. Y'all have a caregivers group? She was actually shocked to learn that we have a caregiver group. I was really surprised. But we do have a caregiver group, and there's a lot of sharing, a lot of fun, there's laughter, and we can learn from each other. So if you are a caregiver and would like to come to it, it's going to be always on the second Thursday of the month, and it's at 2 o'clock, August 8th. Judy Mayo helps me, and she's in the audience, and she helps me with this group, and it's really it's a good time to learn. So I'd like to encourage you to come to that. And as a reminder to everyone, normally we meet on the fourth Thursday of every month. There we go. Fourth Thursday of every month. However, the church bumped us during the summertime, so we're meeting on the third Thursday. So instead of the fourth Thursday, third Thursday. So next month's meeting is going to be August the 15th. But I'm so glad that we still have a nice crowd that came today. Okay, as you know, our mantra is to educate, 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 exercise, 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 and socialize, socialize, socialize. Socializing is what we like to do for not only come in early, 2:30 to 3 to get to visit with everyone, but we now have socials, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our socials that we're having. Plus, we exercise. We encourage exercise, and we actually have exercise classes every day of the week that you can go to because exercise is the one thing, and I know that Dr. Rhoden will be sharing this with you, but this is the one and only thing that we know that slows the progression of Parkinson down. So he'll be talking about that. And then to educate is why we always have these monthly meetings to learn more and more. Just as a reminder, when I said we have them every week, I know my Zoom crowd could probably see this slide better. It might be a little hard with y'all in here. See pretty good. Anyway, as you can see on Mondays, we have vocal exercise classes. And we have JD Bush right here with us. She's in the audience. She's our speech therapist. We have music therapy on the first, third, and fifth. And we have 2 professional singers and a piano player. So you get a chance to sing. And then we have card games on Mondays. I've got Dudley in the very back. And Dudley, yes, I really, really, really want y'all. If you like to play cards, we're going to come right after our vocal exercise, and it's a lot of fun. Parkinson Fitness. We have Parkinson Fitness on Tuesdays and on Thursdays. And I think I saw Kathy Carver here. She said, yes, there's Kathy and Beth. Both of them made it. So wonderful supporters. And just for those in the Zoom crowd, as well as our audience, if you are not a Sun City resident, you can still go to Sun City to do these classes. They have made it very convenient. We have a wonderful working relationship and partnership. Thank you so much. I think I need some water here, you guys. Anyway, so I really would like to encourage you guys to be sure and check that out. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I have a hard time opening water bottles. Hey, Stan, my fella. It's kind of gets a little hard. Okay, the other thing I want to share with you, on the fourth Tuesday of every month, we have art therapy. And we're very fortunate. Thank you, Stan. We're very, very fortunate that Cindy Martin is here, and Cindy Martin is our art instructor. I also got to share one little thing with you. Cindy Martin has been selected to be one of the presenters at the national conference that's coming up, and we'll have a breakout session. So I really, really hope, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the national conference in just a moment, but if you go to it, you can go into her class, and it's wonderful. But we will be meeting next week, next Tuesday, and I think we're doing birdhouses. Is that right, Cindy? Yeah, birdhouses. So you get to paint birdhouses. There's still openings. Please, please, please. Oh, we got an example even back over here. And you can sign up back here, and we can put you in. But this is really a fun opportunity. All of this is on my email, so check it out. On Wednesdays, we partner with Power for Parkinson's. We have Brain and Body, a fun class. And then we, again, on Thursdays, Parkinson Fitness, ping pong. Ping pong is currently on hold. We're checking it out. The rec center bumped us out, and that's the reason why it's on hold at this moment. But we're learning a little bit more on how we're going to maybe modify ping pong. So more coming. Fridays Oh, Thursdays is the other card game. Fridays we have Loud and Clear. This is a free class that our board chair has now offered to everyone. So if you would like to sign up for Loud and Clear, it's a Zoom class in your home, but you get to talk directly to him. You get it all set up. You've got the link for you. It's very, very easy. Anyway, you can take this online free class. So I want to keep that in mind. And on the fourth Friday of every month, we have brain games. And then we have boxing for Parkinson's. Now that one is two groups. In fact, I see Carrie here. Carrie is representing 413, fitness and boxing. And again, that's usually a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class here in Georgetown. And of course, we have them in North Austin as well as South Austin. But by all means, we really, really encourage the exercise, and boxing is wonderful. We also have an exercise boxing class for one day a week at the Grand Living. So as you can see, there's lots and lots of opportunities to exercise. These are just some pictures, again, for you just to kind of glance and look at some of the painting classes, some of the different things. Again, it's hard for my in-person folks to see it, but if anybody goes back to the recording, you can see these really, really clear, all of the fun stuff that we do. Okay. I have a question, and you're going to get to be part of my interview group. We've always had chair yoga. In fact, we started out with chair yoga when we very first began as a support group. We've lost our instructor several months ago, but because she moved. But the bottom line is we now have a new instructor that is willing to come. My question is to all of you is if you're interested in chair yoga, would you attend? So if you could just raise your hand and let me know. Patty is doing a real quick count. So if you're interested in chair yoga, would you attend? So just raise your hand. We're just doing a quick count. Okay.
Depends on the day and time, obviously.
Yep, and I'm fixing to come into the day, so we'll just do it. Did you get a few people? Okay. The next one is then what day of the week? I have been told that sometimes people like to have the classes back to back. So we're looking at Wednesday. Wednesday is when we have Power for Parkinson class. So if you're already there, would you like to do it on Wednesday? We thought about Fridays, but several people said Fridays were not good for them. So raise your hand if you like Wednesday better than Wednesday, if you like Wednesday.
Depends on the time.
Okay, the time will be either 11:30 or 2:15. So we're trying to bounce times too.
11:30 would work for me.
11:30. I'm not clear. 11:30, 11:30. Anybody else? Let's. How would that go? 11:30 would work better for you guys. Let
4:13.
And staying away from the traffic. Okay, that's a good point. Okay.
4:13 boxing is on Wednesday, so yeah.
4:13. I don't want to interfere with 4:13, which is one of the reasons why I bumped it. But I'm getting some comments from people that have bumped it after that. It's too late, And then we got Power for Parkinson's too that we don't want to come in. So Parkinson Fitness. So there's lots of things to consider. So please send me an email. Please come up to me after the meeting if you have any other comments. And this is what we're doing. Patty, thank you for taking that down for the survey. I do want to let you know that one of our members is also starting improv. And she's going to be doing improv. It's kind of a comedy thing. She will be doing this at the Grand Living. I've got this already in your email, but by all means, it's going to be on Friday. She's looking at the fourth Friday of every month and from 1 to 2. So just to let you know about that. Social, I told you about our socials. Oh my goodness, we have a lot of fun. We had 18 people at our last social. And I know you might think that I'm Mary Jane's into drinking here. Well, I guess I kind of am. But because we're always going to a bar, it seems like, but they're fun. It's really, really a lot of fun. And so this one is going to be at the Barking Armadillo Brewery. And I just want to have a big thank you and shout out to both Beth and to Kathy. They're on the committee. They help me, as well as Vicki and Michelle. And so we are always looking for places. We're going to be looking for one for August, but this is going to be next week, July 25th. And just come. It's one of these days from 4:30 to 6:30, a chance. And believe me, they do have iced tea and sodas and stuff like that, so you don't have to have a beer. But I just wanted to be sure and share with you. Fun. The whole reason for this is not a fundraiser. It's not anything but just a chance to socialize, get together, talk, visit. And we're having a lot of new people making new friendships. And that's the neat thing. Okay, now this is something that's really cool. I got to share with you. GAPS, was contacted by the American Parkinson Disease Association. This isn't even advertised nationally. They contacted us though, and they are going to offer a national art therapy class. So they just contacted a few groups to do this. This is totally free to you. On Wednesday, August the 14th is when they're going to do it. They're going to do a Zoom. So you could be at home and do this. All you got to do is sign up, and it was in my email. You just send an email to this, and oh boy, another name I can't pronounce. And a shoe, what's something another. Anyway, it's in the email. The point is, they're paying for all of the supplies and they will mail them to your home. That's pretty cool. But I went on and did a step more, and I have got a room for us. So if you would like to get your supplies and then join us as a group, we could do this. So I have us a room in Sun City at the worship place, and I will bring my own computer, set it up on big screen that'll be clearer than this one, I promise. And we can do it together as a group if you would like to. But if you'd like to do it at your home, you can also do it at your home. So this is something that's really, really cool. But please check out the email, sign up for this. It's going to be fun. And yes, I'm making my husband do this too. So, honey, you're going to be doing art. Anyway. So anyway, y'all think about this and check it out. Okay, Parkinson 101. This is something brand new. We've not ever done this. It's a brand new event. It's going to be on September the 18th, and it's going to be a collaborative event. I'm working with BAPS, which is Bell County, and I saw Gail's here. Gail is our support group leader there, and she's always is very good and supportive. It's going to include Bell County as well as Williamson County, Travis County, and Hayes County. And this is for the newly diagnosed or somebody that wants to learn a little bit more about Parkinson's. As you can see, I've got the agenda basically already down. It's going to be totally free for you. It's going to be lunch included, and I'm working on getting some, sponsorships. The sponsors will be outside, or not outside. They will be in the room on the sides of the room. They'll have their own table, so that'll be really, really cool. And it's going to be a Q&A discussion. We'll have a medical person there. You get to meet other people with Parkinson's, caregivers. It's going to be really a good event. We're going to be doing this twice a year in collaboration with all these groups. So this is the first one, and GAPS is getting it started, and GAPS will be kicking it off September the 18th. So more information coming. So if you know someone newly diagnosed, or if you're newly diagnosed, or if you just want to learn a little bit more about Parkinson's, be sure you sign up for this. All in, I got to tell you about this. This is our national conference. Now, we have a very good partnership with PMD Alliance, GAPS. They have actually come and done programs here in Georgetown 6 times in the last several years. So this is a national group. Well, they actually said that one of the reasons why they chose Texas was because of GAPS. They would have had the national conference in Georgetown, but sincerely, Austin has name recognition over Georgetown. So it's going to be in North Austin. It's going to be on November 20th and 21st. But GAPS is doing the reception. So we are doing the reception for all of the guests coming in. So that's another little ball I'm dribbling over here to try to keep up with. But in any case, it's going to be super. And I want to be sure and just invite all of you guys to come. It's Tuesday night is the reception. Wednesday is the event from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Lunch is included. Then Thursday is from 9 to 2. Breakfast and lunch is included there too. So it is $75. And the reason why I wanted to be sure and do a shout out for this is because the price goes up after August 31st. But this does not include a room or anything like that. But since we're so close, we don't really need a room, but we can go for the day. But it'd be a great event. It helps you to empower support group leaders, as well as you get to learn so much. And it got some great keynote speakers that's going to be coming. Jimmy Choi will be here again. There's going to be several others. I was a speaker, actually, one of the speakers 2 years ago. They only had this every 2 years. And 2 years ago, they had it in Washington, D.C. And to be very honest with you, Cindy Martin, our art instructor, went with me. And she was so motivated after going to this event because it was so cool But she came back and said, I want to start something for gaps. And that's how the art therapy got started, to be honest with you, was because she attended. And just another little FYI on this slide, the person right there with the colorful jacket, I know you can see it a lot, maybe you can see it pretty good up there. It's me. Anyway, I was more excited. I didn't know they had a picture, but anyway, I'm on the little excitement, their advertisement, but that was kind of interesting. I went, oh, anyway, I do hope that y'all will consider going to this. It's going to be a great event. And so I'm just putting a shout out. It's going to be in my emails all the way up until it occurs. So you'll be seeing lots about it. Now, finally, for the speaker, I know I go on and on and on, but it's really good. We're very, very fortunate to have Eric. I met Eric gosh, years ago. He used to work with another movement disorder specialist and was doing all their physical therapy. And now he is the clinical director of a run lab Austin. So come on up. And he's got someone with him. I'll let him do all the introduction. And we're going to transfer slides here real quick. So as you're talking, I'll try to find your PowerPoint.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Right. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Rhoden. Call me Eric. Either way. I do have my counterpart in the back, Casey. She'll be helping me out with the exercises here in a minute. Despite the name Run Lab, I'm not going to make you all run today. All right. We do a lot of walk therapy as well. We do hiking. We do weightlifting therapies. Basically, our kind of claim to fame is we are called biomechanical experts. That is a fancy term for we try to treat the source of the movement that triggers issues versus, oh, you have a symptom in your shoulder. Let me rub on it, make it feel better in that moment. And then you go back to your boxing class and you rehearse yourself. So we try to actually fix the movement that is causing the issue versus just putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot. So we are an outpatient physical therapy group. So we are covered by most major insurance. So most of you may be on Medicare. You're pretty much covered in full there. Even if you've had therapy earlier this year.
I'm looking for your slideshow.
They can help us as far as continuing therapy. So we have our booth over there. So if you are interested, we can gather your contact info. We also have cards that you can look at.
I'm trying to get yeah, I know. I need my slideshow. Where's the slideshow?
Our location
there it is.
Georgetown. Our main headquarters where I work out of is out of the Domain area. So where the Q2 stadium is, we're right behind there. And then we have a much further south down like Mopac and 71. Then we have another doc that works out of a gym down there. So we don't currently have anything in Georgetown. We are maybe looking in the future to maybe open something up north or more north than the Domain. But what we currently do with a lot of our movement disorder patients, you're like, why would I go to an outpatient ortho place? Again, I've got a decade of movement disorder experience. I worked with one of the movement disorder docs in town. I also worked back in La Jolla, in California, with their movement disorder group out of UCSD. So I'm well versed in the movement disorder world. Just kind of came back into the sports realm. And as I took over the director here, it made the most sense to kind of combine the two. So being my neuro background and then combining the new orthopedic biomechanics side, we actually have quite a few. I have about a dozen Parkinson's patients that followed me over, and we work with them just like we would in the normal neuro setting. So doesn't mean you have to break up with your neurotherapist you already have. This can be an adjunct because as you'll see in a little bit, we do things a little differently and we analyze your movements a little better. And then also a plug for anybody that does have DBS. I work with quite a few of those patients. I actually did about 7 years of DBS programming myself. So what I do with those patients that week that they are going to see their movement disorder doctor, we do a video that's about a minute long of what I am seeing and what they could likely possibly try to help program out. Because as for all of you that do have DBS, you know, they do this one, they do this one, they move your hand, they have you stomp your foot. Well, sometimes maybe it's, hey, I have a hard time getting off the toilet or playing ping pong and I'm moving this way. So we do a more advanced analysis of you to be able to tease out some of the things that are related to maybe your DBS that could be adjusted versus maybe you just have an orthopedic issue and your rotator cuff's messed up. So we help kind of tease that out. But that video, she literally, a patient yesterday, she brought it to her doc. They came in, they adjusted her program. She was not able to skip before, and now she can skip. She's pretty high functioning, which is really cool. But that's nothing that you would ever go into a doc's clinic like, I really want to skip. But when she was in 413 classes, they were trying to make her skip. One of the sides didn't work. We looked at it and we're like, yeah, that's more Parkinson's related. That's not a physical weakness. he was able to program it out of her. So kind of a fun little combination of the orthopedic analytics with the neurospecialty. All right, so that is my amazing family. I always like to throw in a little pictures and show and tell. So that is my son, Mason. He's 10 years old. That is my amazing wife, Erin. Will be 15 years in 20 days. So I'm very excited about that. And those are my two cute dogs, Rufio and Nibs. That is from the movie Hook with Robin Williams. Those are the Lost Boys because they're rescues. So we're cheesy like that, you know. All right, so who are we? Again, I already kind of talked about this, but I want to highlight it again. We are outpatient physical therapy. We take all major insurance companies. We also do cash-based if needed. We are biomechanical experts. We fix the source, not the symptom. We retrain more in movement patterns, or what I call drills, versus what I would say your standard exercises, like clamshells or hip bridges, or maybe just the band. We're going to move you in a different way to have you understand how to move correctly. Our kind of claim is we want to move perfect, not just move. That is one of the big components with our Parkinson's patients that I tell them. I was like, we're always told to what? Move big and move quick, right? Because we slow down and we shrink. If I can actually make you move big but correctly, so maybe you have a shoulder issue because your shoulder blade is not moving backwards, and so you're just slamming into the back of that joint, or you're trying to do the bending, the power movements, and your knees are hurting because you're bending all through your knee and you're not using your tush. So we help correct those movements so then you can keep doing the movements and try to push off this disease as long as possible. So again, that's the kind of that fusion of the orthopedic specialty with your guys' neuro bias. We use a lot of high frame rate motion capture. So what the heck does that mean? We basically use really high powered cameras. In slow motion, we capture you walking or running or doing whatever movement that you need to do. So that way we can give some visual feedback for you. You're like, oh my gosh, I never knew my foot did that weird thing. And all of a sudden we start correcting it and you have less of a balance issue, or you have less blisters, or your plantar fascia or plantar fasciitis goes away. So that is what we do at Run Lab. Now, an example, or sorry, this is our team of docs. So we have our boy squad up top of the domain, and then that is Dr. Skipper down below. She runs our South location at the moment. So those are our 4 doctors that work. So this is a video of a Parkinson's patient. She did consent for me to play this. So she's been diagnosed for about 7 years now, still quite active. She does a lot with us. She comes in probably about once a week to get some tune-ups on drills and things like that, and also massage work. We also do that with people. And again, that gets covered by the insurance. So we might treat you for a little bit movement-wise, and then we're going to treat that shoulder and make it feel better with some massage work too. Great. Casey, one of our mobility specialists, is amazing at it. We've got a couple others that also help. They work wonders. So when we look at someone walking, so this is her slow motion video from the side view, we are looking at how she hits the ground, how her knees move, what are her hips doing, are her arms moving, does she have too much of a tilt forward? We are analyzing this extensively from head to toe and trying to figure out what could be the root cause of her pain. So for her, for example, she had left hip pain, in particular when she was attempting to do any jogging or plyometric movements. So the next slide. Second here. Technical error here. There we go. Okay, well, that video is erroring, so that's fun. We can see it with her walk as well. So when she walks, we see her leg kick out a little further on one side versus the other. So this is a very subtle thing. You may not notice it as much. I'm going to play it again. Her right leg kicks out a little further than her left leg when she lands on the ground. That puts a different distribution of weight between the muscle tissues. So they activate differently side to side. For her, her left side was kicking out. So I call it like a Shakira hip, right? So her hip keeps popping to the side. And that puts stress on her IT band, on her hip joint, bursitis, all things that you probably have heard of, these orthopedic terms. And she was just getting obnoxiously sore in those areas. You then throw that into a jog, it amplifies tenfold. So she was only able to run maybe 50 yards before she started having pain. We modified a couple movements. She can now run a mile. Our limitation now is not our pain, it's just fitness or wanting to run past a mile because who wants to do that? So I'm going to move past this one here. 1 second. Come on. Just want to get past it. Good old technical errors. All right, let's try this again. So when you come in day one and we make you walk or run, depending on what you're doing, we pretty much make everybody walk. You are going to leave actually, you're going to get an email about 2 days later with this crazy report on it. You're like, I don't know what any of that means. It is a 15-page PDF report of your movement on paper. It is very extensive, it is very thorough, and is talking about every phase of the walking or running cycle and what you do, good or bad. And it gives a nice little visual of this little green, yellow, red of, hey, you're doing stuff good right now in this particular position, but maybe you're doing something bad here. And it references the area of your body that it might stress more, your knee, your foot, your hip, your back, etc. And so you'll leave with this and you'll have it as a reference. In addition, you also get a MP4 little video of our gait technician, and he walks you through this report with your video next to it. So they are side by side. So you know what this report actually means in reference to your movements. So it's very digestible. It's very user-friendly. Then to do it again, when you come back for our second visit, we go through this even more thoroughly and explain how everything is interconnected. So I like to explain that this report is similar to like if you got lab work done, and it talks about the things that are in range or out of range. Then you go back to your doctor and he says, yes, you know what, that one's in range, but I think we could make it better. Suboptimal versus optimal. So we tease that out to make sure that you can move as efficient as possible and with the least amount of pain as possible. Because even if you're not in pain, we might be able to make you move easier to make less fatigue occur, because maybe you just get tired really quickly when you're walking. That may just be an inefficiency of how you're moving. Again, move smarter, not harder. We also give shoe recommendations, okay? This is primarily for fitness shoes, okay? But this can be a walking shoe or a running shoe. Most running stores out there will put you in a static position, and then they measure you and they say, are you pronating or supinating? Is your arch collapsing? Do you have a high arch? Do you have a low arch? Those are all true statements, but they don't necessarily let us know what you are doing dynamically. And then there's other parts of your body, if you have limitations in, tight hamstrings, tight Achilles, a shoe can actually be harmful to you versus helpful. So this actually gives you the anatomy of the shoe. So you could walk back into a good shoe store and say, hey, Run Lab gave this to me. What are the shoes that work? They pick out the 4, and you pick the cute one that feels good. And so that really does help quite a few people, because there is so much advertising and, in all fairness, blatant lies of shoes out there as far as what they do or don't do. This kind of gets through the weeds and makes it understandable. Okay. And then basically that last page is just a recommendation list. It's a summary of everything saying, here's your main faults. This is what we're going to do with you. And then we go through it together even more extensively. So what I wanted today to go through on the gait side is very common deficits that we see and their relations to painful spots in the body that occur based on those deficits. So I'm going to kind of go in order through here. I apologize for the online people. I'm going to move just a hair off to the side so you guys can see a little bit, or I might actually have Casey demonstrate instead. Casey, I'm actually going to have you come all the way up there. That way we can demo a few things. She did not know I was going to make her do that. So decreased knee bend when we are walking. I like to call this the peg-legged pirate. This is the person that kicks their leg out really, really far and they lock it, or we call it the Tin Man lock, right? That does a couple different things. That makes your knees not feel great because you're using your quads a little too much and it's pressurizing your knee joint. So people that have arthritic pain, meniscus tears, ACL issues, that locking of the joint to not let it slide and move the way we want puts an exponential amount of force in the knee. In the same boat, that walking will also make low back pain occur because when she is stiff legged like that, it doesn't allow her to use her glutes as well to propel her. So she'll actually thrust through her back and use those extensor muscles. So if you're walking and you're like, man, my back is really sore.
Can we try it? We'd like to try to get so our Zoom crowd could see this.
Okay.
Can we, we'll come right back over here. If we do this, we're thinking, okay, super. So we can just click it off right there and then you come right back on.
Okay.
And that way,
I'm gonna have you demo one more time.
yeah, if you don't mind, so they can see.
Yeah. I'll treat her later. So when she walks like that, you can see her trunk moving excessively. A few of you might be nodding your head like, hey, I move like that, or hey, that's my spouse. That will cause some back pain. So again, it's these weird little anomalies where we assume it's just like, oh, I'm getting older, I have back pain, but actually it can be an overactivation of a muscle as a compensation pattern. Now, next one, I'm going to go a little bit out of order because I don't remember them off the top of my head,
But you can bounce back.
but we can bounce back to it.
Yeah, go back to your share screen. There's the green button. And then go to your slide. Perfect.
Okay.
And so you can toggle back and forth
Okay.
if you want, and then stop share screen right there.
Perfect. Okay, so the next one is what we call crossover. This is the concept of like walking on a tightrope. Now, in neurotherapies, we purposely make you walk on a tightrope to challenge your balance, right? But we don't want to be doing that in everyday life. The reason why that would cause a lot of hip pain, usually in particular. And then with our runners, possibly even our walkers, depending on the distance, lower leg pain. So I'm going to toggle back off here. And I'm going to have you walk forward. So she's only going to walk a couple steps. I call it the model walk. It's great for the runways, but not for the walkways. Okay. That honestly, I'm going to have her demo one more time. She did such a good job. That crossover puts an exorbitant amount of stress on the lateral hip. Also, depending on what the foot is doing, it's also going to put stress on the foot. So plantar fasciitis issues, lateral foot pain, maybe even toe pain. So we want to minimize that. Now, we don't want to be walking around like a sumo wrestler. That's not efficient either, but we can dial that in a little bit more. And that often occurs, again, as a compensation movement, because maybe I'm trying to overstride. I'm trying to step so far out. So when I put my hand out and I say reach, this is a normal distance of reaching versus if I say reach as far as you can, I rotate my torso. That can happen in the leg as well. If you don't need to step your furthest, you need to step your best. That is one thing that I often will see in the Parkinson's ring, right? We talk about walking big. We kind of do the Charlie Chaplin really big, long walk. But you only should move as big as you can stay safe and not stress any muscle tissue. So we just try to teach that a little differently. All right, I am going to go back to my share screen again. And we'll kind of double dip here. So upright trunk and whip. So then I'm going to flip back one more time. This is fun. So the upright trunk, or what I call almost like the lazy intern, so the kind of excessive sway there. She's going to walk by. You just no fling, just do the upright. Which you're like, oh, well, isn't that good? You're supposed to be upright. We talk about posturing all the time in Parkinson's. But if she is so upright that she even is flaring her ribs, that will overactivate her back muscles. That can actually cause neck pain, shoulder issues. It messes with your balance quite a bit because pushing yourself so far back actually shifts your center of gravity too far back. And so then that will mess with how long you're able to stay on the ground. The other one is a whip. We have medial and lateral whips. I'm going to have her just face away for a second so you can see her foot. So when she picks one up, her heel will either go in or out. And you'll see that with people walking, or often what people say like, oh, I always notice I have a scuff mark on my left shoe. Or is that why I always kick mud on myself when I'm walking or jogging? because you're literally flicking it on those spots. This is a huge one for plantar fasciitis and Achilles pain, because when I put a twist to the motion, it bows the tissue. Our plantar fascia and our Achilles is lined up very, very parallel. And so if I add in any type of rotation, it bows as if you were strumming a guitar string. And so that little reverberation heats up and causes more and more inflammation. So a lot of people will struggle with this. We fix this, it almost goes away instantly if you can keep it. That's the hard part, right? And that's why we got to practice and guide you through that. So those are the very common faults that we see both in the walking and even in the running. I'm going to bring us back. Let's give a round of applause for Casey here. That was very, very good. So I'm going to momentarily have you guys all stand up because you've been sitting very, very well, just to get a little brain break. And we're going to do a particular drill for that whipping motion in particular. Okay. Actually, yeah, that would be good.
Okay. And so they can see
Go
me.
ahead and stop that here.
Okay.
So we are going to find our big toes, which sounds very silly. Okay. For those that are a little bit more have balance deficits, I want you to go ahead and either use your walkers or you can hold on to the chair in front of you. So the first one that we're going to do, we call it the cliff lean. So we're all at the Grand Canyon right now, and we wanted to look down into the ravine, but we didn't want to fall, right? So we are trying to shift forward to look over the edge, but not so far where you actually have to take a step. When you do that, as silly as that is, you feel the pressure shift from maybe the heel into the ball of your foot or your toes. Now, what we are trying to do with that, when we shift and lean, as Casey's going to demonstrate here, and there's a difference between leaning versus bowing, okay? Can you give me a side profile? So if she bows the incorrect way versus leaning her whole body, see how her heels are just barely coming up off the floor? Because she's shifted so far, she's almost on the verge of needing to take a step. What we are paying attention to is, do I even feel my big toe on the floor? Do I feel any contact with my big toe, in particular the ball? Very often, we start shifting lateral, and we love to engage the outside of the foot, and we've lost the big toe. That will actually start creating a whipping motion. If we kept translating through, we would spin off the outside of that foot, thus causing some of those plantar fascia issues or Achilles issues. So I want you to give me 3 good leans, trying to keep that big toe in contact, or what we like to call smush the grape. So if there's a grape underneath your big toe, smush the grape down as you shift forward, and then you just rock back. So that is version 1.0. Then version 2.0, because we don't always are not on 2 feet, we're going to do this marching in place. So if I am picking my foot up and I'm just doing these little baby steps, can I feel my big toe? Or do I happen to shift so lateral that I lose it? It's a really silly drill, but it's surprising. And you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I don't feel that thing at all. How do I engage? How do I plant that big toe back down on the floor? It's a huge component of walking and a huge component of stability. So it's a very, very important concept for you all to apply in regular life, Parkinson's life, everything in between. Everybody should be doing it. All right. Let's give a round of applause also for Casey again. All right, y'all can sit back down. That was great.
They were like,
Y'all were great with that. Let's connect here. All right, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Get rid of that top screen here. There we go. Okay, so that's the gait components. And again, that is what we do kind of best, right? Again, you don't have to be a runner to be seeing us. You can be a walker or anything in between. I want to talk about the strength side for a little while. Because obviously the game is, do I have a deficit in my strength or do I have an issue with my mechanics? Sometimes it's one or the other. Quite often it is both. So I want to kind of do a general overview of strength And then we'll kind of move on to some of the myths that are out there. And then I want to get into some direct application of what could I do to increase my strength and how do I do it maybe safely versus just, hey, let me just lift as much as I can, as hard as I can. And then I want to have ample time at the end for questions to talk through some stuff and also do one more demo of some movements. Okay, so that'll be kind of our guide as far as where we're heading. So the definition of strength, there are many definitions, but I do like this, is the capacity of an object or substance, or the object and substance, to withstand great force or pressure. So if I put a weight on my back, that is a great force or pressure. And then how well am I able to hold on to that pressure? You are only strong enough based on the force. So it's like, okay, if I put 250 pounds on my back, maybe I am not strong enough to handle that pressure. Maybe right now it's 5 pounds, but you want to be able to condition yourself to handle more pressure and force on your body, because that will then lead to you being stronger, have your bones stronger, have your muscle tissue at a better quality, which we'll talk about that here in a minute. In the medical world, how do we measure strength? So if you've been to therapies before, or even your regular doctors, what do they usually do? Put your arm out. I'm going to push down on it. Put your arm here, push down on it. Test your bicep. Can you stand up and down without using your hands? Those are all true statements, and they are a very general way to determine strength. But often we will have strength and we don't know how to use it. What I mean by that is when I did my running analysis many years ago, I had the Shakira hips. I have a strong leg. I could back squat 400 pounds at that time. I was weightlifting. There's no way I should have this weird hip drop that usually is an indication of weakness in our hips. My issue was I was overstriding. I was the overreacher, which that put more load in my quads and basically didn't invite my butt to the party that was running. And so it was delayed on turning on. And so if it's not turning on, then I get my hip drop. So it wasn't a true issue of weakness. It was a lack of proper timing because of my bad mechanics. All of a sudden we change that, it disappears. I got faster with not a whole lot of work because all of a sudden I turned on the big engine in the back, which is what we want to go for. So understanding if you actually really have a strength issue versus is it a mechanical disadvantage is the thing that we kind of tease out with you, which is kind of fun. You're like, oh, I actually can do that. I just didn't know how to do it the right way or how to turn on the right muscle. So that's kind of the fun part, the little Sherlock Holmes of figuring things out. There has been a large amount of studies coming out on the aging population in relation to muscle tissue, right? So they talk about what we call, the fancy term is hypertrophy, which is gaining of muscle tissue or making it grow. There is a large indication. It used to be just saying, oh, stay active, right? Stay moving, and that usually reduces mortality risk. Now what they're saying beyond that is like, yes, we want to be cardiovascularly fit. Obviously, we want our heart, we want our lungs to be strong. But we need our muscles to be strong. It sounds silly, but muscle tissue changes if we don't fight against it. So I apologize for all the vegetarians in the room. We're going to talk about meat. So a nice filet mignon. It is a very lean piece of meat, right? You cut down it. It is pretty. For me, it's nice and pink all the way through. Maybe you're a rare guy, whatever. There's minimal fat content through it. Then you have the extreme of the opposite, Wagyu, right? If you ever had Wagyu or seen it, it is marbled with fat content. You can have someone that looks fit, or maybe isn't necessarily fat, and yet their muscle tissue looks like the Wagyu beef versus the filet mignon. So quality of tissue is a key component. Now, you can't necessarily get this tested unless you want to spend a bunch of money and get these crazy fancy MRIs, but you can understand how much general lean body mass from what we call a DEXA scan, or there's other places in town that do these body composition tests. Know where your muscle tissue is. How much do you have right now? Because that actually will guide you on nutritional choices, which I'll talk about here in a second. So it's important to just say, oh yeah, I want to get stronger and I want to gain more muscle. Well, where are you right now? You need a baseline measurement, ideally, if you really want to get into this, to make you understand, is your exercise actually helping? Maybe you've been working out for 2 years and you're like, why am I still the same? Or you think you're getting better, and then all of a sudden something you fall and you break something because you actually weren't gaining anything. You just got more efficient at moving, which gives you an appearance of being strong. So that's a big component. So we are pushing the industry as a whole. Wellness is pushing strength training for the geriatric population more and more. We want you all to have more muscle, not turning you into Arnold Schwarzenegger. I just want you to retain, right? What we call sarcopenia, that is the fancy term for muscle loss or shrinkage, is now a epidemic. It is everywhere. It is so much so that it used to not be a diagnosis, and now the medical world claims it as a diagnosis, a treatable symptom, because it is everywhere in the community. So it is a big deal, and we want to fight back against it. And so we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more here in a second. So I want to go over some of the main myths that we often hear about muscle tissue. I need to have big muscles to be strong. That is false. Okay. You do not have to be bulky, and you don't actually necessarily gain a whole lot of mass to be very, very strong. I put this slide there. That is a very detailed picture of what muscle looks like. So basically, you have a large case that has smaller muscle in it, smaller muscle inside it, smaller. These are capsules, basically. And so, depending on what you need, depending on those circles, how many will activate for a given load against your body. Well, if you never turn on all of them, you never maximize your potential. And so if I'm only lifting the tiny weights, maybe only 30% of those turn on. Versus if I'm actually once in a while, not every time, but maybe once a week, every 2 weeks, I am pushing really, really heavy weight. Now it turns the whole team on. And now you know how to use your muscle to its max capacity. That is a super important thing. Real application, you see this in wrestling, right? So wrestling has weight classes. You have kids that are 100 pounds wet, and yet they are freakishly strong. Whereas my mom used to tell me I was wiry. That is thin strong. Then you have people that are all the way up at 250, and they are monstrous, bulky people. They might be stronger at that point just because of their size, but relative to their weight, that 100-pound kid probably can produce more force in comparison to the big guy. So you don't actually have to bulk up or gain weight to be stronger. Muscle turns into fat when you don't use it. This was the reference of earlier, where you get that Wagyu beef. So it's not that the muscle is changing to fat, it is that fat is being deposited between your muscle tissue. It is spreading them out and making them less efficient. And so we don't, the muscle never goes away. It can shrink, right? Your muscle fibers always stay unless you actually like break them or they're taken away for whatever reason, right? But we all of a sudden add these fat layers and these deposits in there, and it suffocates things out. Just like visceral fat, which we talk about, which is around your stomach area, but that's like deep in your organs. So you actually can have fat that deposits around there, and it actually squeezes on your organs. I don't know about you, but I don't like my organs being squeezed, and they reduce their function out. It's the same way in your muscle tissue. They start becoming dysfunctional, so we don't want that. Weightlifting is hard on your joints. It's only hard on your joints if you're doing something wrong. If you are appropriately lifting with the right forms, this should not hurt you. Now, there are those extreme circumstances where certain tissues, maybe you've hurt something, maybe you have a bone-on-bone situation. But a perfect example, I had a lady a month ago. She came in, bilateral knee pain. She's 72. She was told by her ortho doctor, you have severe arthritis in both your knees. You no longer should walk, pick up biking. And she had been walking her whole, like that was her main mode of enjoyment in life, her activity, her hobby. That's how she hung out at Fred's. And she was devastated. Again, we looked at her walking form. She was that peg-legged pirate overstriding. She was using her quads and she was actually just pulling on her kneecap so hard. It wasn't arthritic pain. It was patella tendon pain. We worked with her. She now is back up to 3-mile walks, pain-free. So just because you have a quote unquote bad joint, if you can move the most optimal way possible, you might be able to get away with a lot more than you think. So don't just chalk it up to like, well, my shoulder sucks. I guess I'm done. No, do your best to see. Maybe it's just an issue of readjusting, turning on a particular muscle, mobilizing something. And also it's like, oh, I can put a shirt on again without being hurt. Simple things like that. And then the last myth, cardio burns more fat than strength training. Not true. We're talking about this whole like calories game, and there's this weird thing called the EPOC effect, which is post-exercise consumption. This is getting really nerdy, high-level stuff. Basically, the big difference that you need to know when you are doing cardio, aerobic training, I'm running, I'm walking, you're biking, you're swimming, something that is a sustained low-level exercise, you are burning those calories right then and there. So if I'm going to walk for 30 minutes, I'm going to burn for those 30 minutes, and then it's going to stop as soon as I stop. With weightlifting, you are burning during, maybe not quite at the same rate as the cardio, but you keep burning afterwards for almost up to 24 hours. Your metabolism is increased. And then guess what? If you gain more muscle, your metabolism increases even more at its resting state. My base metabolic rate, or what we call like our calories. So if I could just sit on my tush and do absolutely nothing, my body is going to burn about 2,500 calories just sitting there. Versus if I weighed 100 pounds and I had way less muscle on me, my burn rate might be 1,300. So it dramatically changes the energy that is needed. So for me, I get to eat more food. That's good. I love food, right? And so it's that game of playing. Okay, if I'm doing this for weight management, am I doing it for strength? It helps across the board. So we want to make you strong. Okay. So don't just say, oh, well, I do cardio, so that's my fitness. That is great. But also, you got to throw around some weights or get on the machines, right? It doesn't have to be free weights. I don't care what type of movement. Push some stuff around. Throw your grandkids, whatever. Now, application. I'm a big fan of like, I don't want to just listen to all this information. Like, what do I take away from that when it comes to the strength side? Now, these are generalizations, okay? This can range quite a bit, but repetition ranges for strength, we're going to bias this towards hypertrophy, so muscle gain. We're going to put it on the lower end of only 5 reps, all the way up to about 12 reps. So if I'm going to do, let's say, push-ups, I could do as little as 5 push-ups. Kneeling, I don't care, whatever version you want to do. And then I'm going to rest for a little bit. In particular, that's the second point. I need to adequately rest because I need to be giving my best effort each time. If I am not resting enough, you're not going to maximize your force production. Now they're like, well, what about circuit training? What about my boxing class when we go, or Power for Parkinson's? We're moving the whole time. Those are phenomenal things. You are doing conditioning. You are conditioning your muscle. You're conditioning your brain to handle movement longer, which is phenomenal. But you also need adequate rest when we're talking about lifting heavy things, because your body only can produce a certain amount of force, especially heavy weights, for a very brief period of time. So make sure you adequately rest. It's a big range, 1 to 5 minutes. Yes, you could do 5 reps of something heavy and then sit there for 5 minutes. You're like, hey, I like this workout. Now, mind you, if I'm doing that type of resting, I'm probably lifting near my maximum weight, whether I'm doing bench press, squats, deadlifts, whatever the motion may be. So it changes. That's why there's such a big range. Then as far as rounds, again, pretty big difference. 3 to 5 rounds can be quite a bit. This is all about volume, which is my third point on there. Statistically, when they talk about the research and they see when people are weightlifting, what gives them their best return on muscle gain? It's 18 sets per week of a particular muscle group. Now, this is getting really nerdy, really, really fast. So I'm going to make this more simple. let's say I'm going to do a pushing motion for my chest. I need to do within my week's time 18 different times, whatever rep count, to be able to try to make gains of muscle in my chest or in my legs. Maybe I have to do 18 rounds of squats throughout my week to make some change in my leg muscles. What do we do right now? Usually it's like, oh, I did 3 rounds of 10, which is great. And it's a good start. And it's going to give you a little bit, but it's not going to trigger your brain chemistry to tell your body, whoa, this is a lot of load. You know what we should do? We should make more muscles. We should make them stronger, bigger, faster, better. You need enough stimulation through the week to allow your body to adapt. You tease it once in a while, it's good. You're going to keep a little bit, but you're really not going to make your way to the gains that you really want. So make sure you are repeatedly challenging those areas. It's surprising. 18, you're like, that's cool. That's a lot of reps. But again, if you think about this, if I am doing, let's say, squats up and down out of a chair, let's say I do 3 rounds of 8. Okay, I've got 3 sets now. But then later, maybe we do deadlifts, which is kind of that motion where you bend over and you pick things up, but you stick your butt out a little bit more compared to the squat. That's still working the leg muscles. Okay, now I'm at 6. So you can mix and match the movements. You don't have to obsess of like, oh, did I just get my bicep? What about my long head and my tricep? Like, don't get that crazy. Think gross, big muscle groups. And you play that 18 game, you might be surprised. In about 4 to 6 weeks, if you try this, you'll notice some differences, both in your strength and possibly even in your physique. Not that we're about aesthetics, but it's nice to look nice. So, added bonus there. The next point, multi-joint movements versus single joint movements. This is what we call hierarchy of what movement should I start with versus what movement I should end with. Now, this bias is towards rehab-minded people, okay? Sometimes just like, hey, I want to kick your butt, and we're just going to throw everything at you. I'm going to talk about my legs. So a multi-joint movement is just like it says, multiple joints are involved. So when I do a squat, I move from my hips, I move from my knees, and I move from my ankles. That's 3 different joints. I want to do those motions first. They are the most complex, and then they are also the highest risk of hurting ourselves. Versus a single joint movement would be a straight leg raise. That is just working my hip flexors and my quads. But if I do a million straight leg raises and then I move into a squat, one of the groups is now really fatigued already. And so I might start compensating elsewhere and overstress my back, my calf, my hamstring, something else. So we want the full team to be rested and healthy at that moment. Then you can isolate and burn through those muscles. That's a great way to do it. But I always recommend starting with multi-joint movements first, okay? And then the last point on there, eating more protein. You've heard this a million times. There is a lot of controversy in the research and the professionals of how much protein should I have? As a general rule, 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight, slight variation of what we usually talk about. If I weigh 300 pounds, I should not be trying to consume 300 grams of protein. Maybe my ideal weight should probably be around 180. So I'm going to aim for the 180 mark. You want to make it tangible for your ideal body weight, not necessarily what you currently are. Now, the one caveat to that, as a general rule, most people should be aiming for at least 100 grams in their day. Obviously, you have some petite people that are maybe lucky to be 100 pounds wet. You still should be pushing that because they're probably smaller because we have that sarcopenia already happening. We're already kind of shrinking down. So we want to kind of supercharge their protein a little bit more. The other part with this is that is total per day. It does not matter about time. Now, obviously in the Parkinson's world, one big component is those annoying dopamine drugs. They interact with protein. which is really, really, really frustrating and very, very inconvenient. It is okay to move your protein around in your day based on when you have to take your medications. It does not have to be in that old golden window post exercise. For protein, that is irrelevant. It does not make it get into your system better and faster. It is within that 24-hour period. So if I have to have breakfast and I have to eat 3 eggs and a protein bar at 10 a.m. because I got to take my Rotari at 8 a.m. and it takes me a while to get it down, and then I want at least an hour in between, that's fine. Or if you got class and then you got to take your Rotari, okay, eat your protein 3 hours later. Just get it in. Now, a lot of people are like, there is no way I can eat 180 grams of meat. That is fair. There are shakes, there are bars, there's even amino acid blends, these powders that make it a little bit easier to do. You'd be surprised how fast you can get it if you actually try to. I generally recommend front loading, meaning I want to try to get in as much protein early in the day. So I want that big bad breakfast. I want to have some eggs. If you're a bacon lover, have some bacon, or you're going to have your shake. I want to front load maybe like 50 grams in a meal, which you're like, oh my gosh, I'd be so full. Well, guess what? That also helps with satiation. So if you're dealing with losing weight and you snack all the time, if you front load 50 grams of protein, you're not going to be hungry for a while. So it's a good way to also regulate overeating is another concept there. Now, another question on the grams of protein, they're like, well, what does that look like as far as food is concerned? Again, general rule, roughly a hand or a deck of cards is approximately 4 ounces of meat. Most chicken that's lean, that's going to be between 25 to 30 grams of protein in 4 ounces. So you're like, wait, you're saying I have to have 6 of those to get to 180? Yeah, technically. So obviously that's a lot of chicken to eat, right? But you mix and match around. It's like, okay, I'm going to have a 6 ounce steak, which is not unreasonable as far as getting out there. Maybe I'm going to have some nuts. Maybe I'll have a protein bar. Maybe I'm going to have some eggs. You'd be surprised how fast you can get there if you put the effort in for it. So again, we have to stimulate our body enough times and with enough weight, and then we have to give it the nutrients it needs to build it. Sorry, I did miss one point. I'm going to jump back to it. On the repetitions, the weight. So an easy rule is if I can make it to the max number, which is 12, let's say I'm doing a bicep curl, and I've got 10 pounds, and I can make it to 12, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not dying yet. I could probably do 2 more reps. Your weight is not heavy enough. A very conservative rule is you increase it by 5%. So if I'm at 10 pounds, technically half a pound, which is a little hard. So maybe I have to jump it up to like a 12 because weights usually don't go by that small. But you need to up the ante. And a lot of people are like, wow, that's a big bump. Like that's going to be hard. Yeah, you have to stimulate your body enough for it to make the changes. So don't be afraid of the weight. And that's why you have healthcare providers like myself or any of the other therapists to help guide you on how to do these movements safely with heavier weights. I want to leave, like I said, a lot of room for questions. I'm going to drop it to the next slide here in a moment. This is just our general contact information. We also have all the stuff over there. We're going to take another brain break and do another activity motion-wise. So I'm going to stop the clock here. I'm going to have Casey rejoin us. We're going to stand back up again, and then we'll get into the questions because I definitely want to hear from you guys. All right, so we are going to do a hip hinging series, or as I like to call it, the dinosaur progression, which you will understand here momentarily. Again, if you have balance issues, if you have back issues, please be a little careful with these, but we'll kind of guide you through it. So Casey is going to demonstrate a proper hinge from the waist. So as she hinges kind of into what we call a deadlift position, you see her butt has to go back. If her butt does not go back and you only tilt, you're going to feel that in your low back. But if you can stick that tush out, now you don't feel nearly as much pain or tension in your low back. So once she is there, this is the weird dinosaur part. is she's going to give me these little tiny baby steps, either in place where you guys are, or she's actually going to start moving forward. What we are trying to do here, we're trying to find your butt. We're trying to turn that sucker back on. Because as I just told you earlier with mine, it didn't know when to turn off. So we are telling it how to do that. An evolution of that is she's going from dinosaur to Godzilla, and she is now marching as she's in that kind of nice awkward position. That pickup requires a lot more balance. It's real awkward. Then the more advanced version, for those that are able, we do a jogging dinosaur. So we're going to revert back to the smaller motion, but now we're going to get a little bouncy. And so now we're introducing a little bit of speed to the motion. But guess what? We don't want to lose our butts. So don't lose your tush. All right, you guys did great. Go ahead and have a seat. Give Casey a round of applause there. Okay, I want, again, leave room for some questions now. I appreciate you guys being so attentive. What do we got? I'd love to answer some questions on gait, strength, whatever it may be, even nutrition related. That's my secondary passion.
My wife was injured in an accident years ago. So she's having a lot of problems, like his knees, her knee was crushed, and she had a rod in her hip or down her leg, blah, blah. Is that something you can help?
Yeah, so for those that didn't hear, said the wife had an accident. She's had a lot of different orthopedic issues, hips, knees, ankles, things like that. Absolutely. Just had a gentleman got hit on his bike, fractured his pelvis, busted a femur, broken arm. He's about 8 weeks out of the accident at this point, and we are slowly getting him back to understanding how to move. Because when you get in an accident where you have surgery, knee replacement, hip replacement, ACL reconstruction, whatever it may be, you do the general rehabs to just get basic motions back. But along that path, because you've been in pain, you develop weird movement patterns because you hurt or you're afraid and you compensate. And so now you've built these weird new things where muscles are overactivating or underactivating. So retraining her out of some of those anomalies that have occurred.
She's 50 years out, so.
Yeah, so in 50 years, we can make some change still. Like I said, fresh, obviously it's a little easier, but we have patients that come in, post-stroke 20 years, and we start working on motions that way too. So great question. Yes, sir.
I had a pinched nerve in my wrist.
Well,
I lost 80% of my muscle here, which is in thumb and forefinger. So they fixed that, but I haven't ever recovered the muscle mass.
in the sense of, can we help that? Or so he had a nerve issue in the wrist and basically has a lot of atrophy in the muscle tissue there, and he hasn't had full return of grip strength. So he's wondering, can that return, or can we help with that in some way? The longer-winded answer would be we need to check nerve health first. So I don't know if you've had a nerve conduction study on that wrist and muscle to determine the health of the nerve. Because if the nerve is healthy and it's signaling well, then it's the aspect of like, oh, I just need to do an obnoxious amount of motion there and work that thing to death to beef it back up.
I had the test beforehand, they relieved the pressure. And so I've got that return.
Have they tested it post? So that would be something he said he had the nerve test done before, but not after the procedure to release the pressure there. So I would want to know now, once the pressure is relieved, is there any residual damage to that nerve that could be limiting the activation of the tissue? So that was where I would go first. And then if it's like, cool, I get the green light, everything looks awesome, then yeah, absolutely. You come to us, you go to a hand therapist, anybody in between to be able to get that working again. Yes, ma'am.
Do you need a referral to come see you?
Good question. So she asked, do you need a referral to come see it? So it really does depend on your insurance companies, but our admin team does all that work for you. So if you leave, again, our contact information, they're going to gather that info and figure that out. Like, actually, your version of Medicare or your commercial insurance does require it. Half of them these days do not. Texas has this weird kind of partial direct access now to therapy. Some can just walk in our door and we're good to go and we get approval. Others still require the old ways, which is you have to get a primary care referral or any specialty. minus a dentist, unless you have TMJ issues. But besides that, great question. Yes, ma'am. Good question. So she said, what is a good source of protein for a vegetarian? So I've had a few vegetarians. Actually went to Loma Linda University for my doctorate, which they're a vegetarian-based campus because they're Seventh-day Adventists as far as their belief system, but I digress. So protein sources for vegetarians, it's more of the game of a lot of vegetables have protein. What I mean by protein is amino acids. This is getting really nerdy, but protein is made up all of these molecules called amino acids. In the vegetarian world, the hard part is most vegetarian proteins, whether it be broccoli, whether it be mushrooms, whatever it may be, don't have as much high of what we call branch chain amino acids. Branch chain are the main acids that help with muscle building. You can actually supplement directly with those branch chain amino acids with some type of powder source that will help kind of beef up those levels. So it gets a little nerdy in the vegetarian world of looking at like, well, what amino acids does broccoli have? What does rice have? What does beans have? And complementing those to what we call a complete protein meal. I'm a big fan of mushrooms as far as they have a really hearty source of a lot of amino acids, and then complementing that with a secondary vegetable. And then obviously tofu, if you are a soy eater, that's usually also a decent source there. I think we have one other, sir?
Yeah, you know what, factor foods.
Factor Foods.
Factor foods.
Is that they're a pre-made company, right? They make pre-meals?
Yep.
Yes.
And you order them and do you like those?
I do. There's a bunch of them out there. I do all the cooking in my house, so I'm a little picky when it comes to pre-made stuff. But as a source, yes, those are good. There's another one in town, I think Snap Kitchen is another pre-made company where basically they will preset a meal and you can actually choose, oh, I want a high protein, I want a low carb, and they kind of bottle it up for you and make it nice and easy. They're a little pricey, so that's, but you pay for convenience. So
Factor foods are, you pay as much as $13 a meal.
yeah, it's like going like Chipotle.
But they give you a lot of chicken, pork chop, salmon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
There's mushrooms in there.
yes.
Some of them I don't eat mushrooms.
Yeah.
But they're pretty good deals.
That's great. That's a good resource. Thank you for that.
We're going for it.
Love it. One more there, sir.
How do you deal with, some of the neuropathy?
Okay, yeah, good question. So he said, what do you do in neuropathy? Is there anything that you can do, or how does gait or strength affect that? So again, a little bit of a Pandora's box answer because the game of where is the neuropathy coming from? So you can have diabetic neuropathies. You also can have what they call idiopathic neuropathies that don't have a known source. You can also have vascular issues that will create the neuropathy. What we look at is, are you possibly putting pressure in certain aspects of your foot unintentionally, which will amplify the neuropathic symptoms, if that makes sense. So it's more of an indirect effect. We're not going to necessarily make the neuropathy go away, but we're going to minimize the excess stress points on your body that could be ticking it off a little bit. I think we're going to run for one more. Sir in the back.
Do you have a strategy for dealing with freezing?
The infamous freezing question. Yes. So again, to kind of go back to the neuropathy side of where is the source of the freezing coming from? What I mean by that is it a off symptom, meaning a motor issue. So as my meds wear off, do I now start freezing more? Or even in my on state, do I still freeze up? Which is more the aspect of the cognitive components of spatial reasoning, distraction, and knowing when to move, how to move. So I would try to differentiate that first. And then we would also look at strategies of that anterior shift, meaning the forward shift into the ball of the foot that is notorious for that festinating freezing gait. What are you doing in your walking strategies that could be exacerbating that? And so we would try to modify your movement as much as possible to limit that excess motion in the front. So it's not a perfect answer of like, oh, this is the exact protocol for freezing. It is very dependent on you and how yours is manifesting. Great question. Yes, sir.
I have one more question. A lot of plantar fasciitis and a lot of movement disorders are related to scar tissue.
Uh-huh.
Does your treatment program help get rid of that scar tissue?
That's a good question. So scar tissue is a nasty little thing. So scar tissue, I like to think about it like a black widow's web. So if you've ever seen a black widow's web, it is chaotic and everywhere. And our tissue likes to live very parallel and organized. And so when that scar tissue lands and webs out and grabs onto anything, our job, we do basically different massage techniques that try to break down that tissue and try to mobilize the scar tissue to make it more aligned. We're never going to get it perfect because scar tissue is just its own thing, but you can work through that and then try to integrate some motion to make that tissue a little bit more malleable because it does not stretch very well because it's got all those tether points everywhere. So yes, indirectly, but you're not ever going to get the tissue to go away, but you can make it behave a little bit better.
Any other questions?
Well, I want to thank you guys for your time. Again, if you're interested in getting contacted, we got our stuff with it.
This was actually awesome, and I was really glad you asked the freezing question because that is something. So if you can help address freezing,
Yes.
that's a really biggie, and oftentimes happens for our Parkinson folks. So we'll be seeing you for sure.
Awesome.
Hey, thank you so
Thank you,
so
virtual everybody.
much. All right. Okie doke. So stay with me here, and I am going to now do a share screen. Come back to my. Okay, let's see here. Remove spotlight. I'll do that one first. Okay, now I can see my stuff. Share screen. We got lots, just a little bit more, so stay with us. Okay. Oh, this is right in my way here. There we go. Done. Okay. As you can see, they're getting the door prizes ready. And so this is our big thank you to him. And I mean, Eric did a fabulous job. And let's see. Hi, there we go. Okay. Sometimes it just takes a little while to get it all together. Our next meeting is going to be next month, August the 15th. And we're going to have Dr. Biss, who's going to be talking to us. She is going to be helping to teach us learn bed and chair mobility transfers and fall prevention. Because of the gait, sometimes it makes it really, really hard. So we definitely, this is going to be another great meeting. So I look forward to you guys coming to this one. And then it is time for door prizes. Really, we've had some wonderful sponsors. Some people go ahead and leave. I see he's very popular. A lot of people going over there, but we got great door prizes.